Hello everyone, welcome back to the Alabama Woodworker. My name is Hui. In this video I start a new build, a dining room table made out of walnut for my wife. I complete the leg assembly for the dining table, which features a reverse tapered leg and double mortise and tenon joints. I modeled this table in SketchUp, so let me show you what I designed so you can get a better understanding of what I'll be building. I gained inspiration for this dining table from a Thomas Moser design entitled American Bungalow Dining Table. While there are aspects of the Moser design that I incorporated in this dining table, my design is unique. Furthermore, I had Thomas Moser himself review my drawings with direct permission from him to document this build and call it my own. The dining table features a 42-inch by 74-inch tabletop with a mitered edge. I'm going to try and make the tabletop as thick as my stock will allow, so anywhere from 3/4 inch to 1 inch. The apron will extend past the leg assembly and also have mitered corners. I originally wanted a two-sided reverse tapered leg, but decided to do a one-sided reverse tapered leg due to stock limitations and to maintain a desirable thickness aspect ratio between the legs and the apron. Lastly, the stretcher assembly will feature bent lamination rails that are joined together by a center stretcher. This video documents the building of the leg assembly, so we'll be focusing on the legs and the top supports. The leg assembly measures a total height of 29¼ inches with 24¼ inches separating the inside faces of the legs from each other. The leg blanks were milled to 2¾ inch square and have a one-sided reverse taper from 2⅛ inch to 2¾ inch, spanning 27¼ inch seen in the side view. The legs were cut to a final length of 29 inches to account for a 1¾ inch deep double tenon that joins the legs to the top support. The top supports were milled to 2 inches by 2⅛ inch by 37¼ inches. I chose to use a double mortise for the increased strength, nearly doubling the glue surface, and having added twisting and torque resistance. The double mortises in the top support are laid out with respect to the center line, which is 18 5/8 inch from the edge. The start of the mortise is 12 3/8 inch from the center line, and the end of the mortise is 14 3/16 from the center line, with a total length of the mortise being 1 13/16 inch. The spacing of the mortise is 1/4 inch from the outside of the top support with 3/8 inch spacing separating the mortises. This means that the mortises are 5/8 inch wide. The total depth of the mortise is 1 3/4 inch, and the mitered corner of the top support is defined by a bevel angle drawn from a mark 7/8 inch from the top of the support and 1 3/8 inch from the end of the support. Finally, the double tenon corresponds to the double mortise and has the same shoulder spacing as the mortises. I would have made the mortise and tenons wider, but I was anticipating a two-sided taper on the legs, and at that point the tenons were already cut. Since I didn't have a second taper on the outside of the leg, there's a bigger shoulder spacing of 11/16 inch on the outside of the leg. Alright, enough talking about design, let's get to milling. The dining room table will be constructed of black walnut. The base assembly is stock that I milled myself using my chainsaw mill. This log was actually salvaged from the 2011 tornadoes that hit North Alabama. After the initial milling process, it looks like I'm not going to be able to get 3-inch square leg blanks. I'm probably going to get somewhere around 2 7/8 inch square. That's okay. I'll just do less of a taper on my reverse taper for these legs. I'm going to be gluing these up using my vacuum press to get good, strong, even clamping pressure on these leg blanks. I'm going to be using Unibond 1, which has a long open time, and the glue line dries extra hard, which is perfect for laminating and veneering. The glue properly cures at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm going to use an electric throw placed over top, and I'm going to leave this to set overnight. I've taken the leg blanks out of the vacuum bag and they look really good. The seam is almost completely invisible. Before I go and do the final milling on both the legs and the top supports, I need to fill the voids and knots with epoxy. I'm going to be using a 2-part West Systems epoxy and dyeing it with a System 3 paste. I've filled all my knots and voids with epoxy. I've allowed it to cure. Now I'm going to clean up all the surfaces using my drum sander. Then I'll go back to my joiner and planer to do my final milling to final dimension. Now I'm going to cross-cut the top supports and the legs to final length. The top supports will be cut to 37¼ inches and the legs will be cut to 29 inches. I cut out the double mortises using a hollow chisel mortiser available to me at a community workshop close to where I work. For the layout of the double mortises, go back to the beginning of the video where I go through the design elements of the leg assembly. After cutting the double mortises on the hollow chisel mortiser, I then go ahead and lay out the double tenons. To do so, I take the leg placed up against the top support and using my marking knife, run it along the mortise cheeks. That will define the tenon cheeks, and then I'll go to my table saw to define the tenon shoulders. I'll then cut and waste away the cheeks using the bandsaw. Then I'll come back to the table saw and on my tenoning jig define the interior of the double mortise and then go back to the bandsaw and waste away that center, finishing off with a chisel and a shoulder plane to get it to fit within the mortise. After cutting the double tenons, I then cut the reverse taper. That process is done on the bandsaw, and then I finish and clean up the bandsaw marks using hand planes. I had a lot of fun building the leg assembly for this dining room table, but it was fraught with a couple of design changes, mainly the thickness of the legs, and rather than using a double-sided reverse taper, using only a single-sided reverse taper. I did this to maintain the thickness of the legs and to maintain the aspect ratio between the legs and the top support and tape-roll aprons. Now, I still have the most difficult portion of this build ahead of me, which is the bent lamination. I'm excited to do it, but I'm also nervous at the daunting task that's ahead. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you saw, hit the like button, or hit the subscribe button, or hit both. If you have questions or comments, leave them below, and you can also follow me on Instagram to see the day-to-day process of what's going on in the shop at Alabama Woodworker. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.